Hey, Spilling the Sweet Tea fam, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my No Food Waste series. This is part 3 of the series and today we're canning Mandarin oranges. I know I'm not the only one that buys these big bag of halos. Some weeks my 10-year-old daughter really loves them and some weeks she just lets them sit. Well, baby, we're not wasting them anymore. I am going to can these halos so we can eat them later. Baby, in this economy, in the year Lord 2025, food is too high and we cannot waste any additional food. So that has been the whole part of my series. If you missed part 1, we made Biscoff banana bread. In part 2, we made pickled red onions. My husband bought too many red onions and I did not want them to go bad, so I pickled them and I showed you how to do that in part 2 of the series. And today, I'm taking you through the entire canning process of these Mandarin oranges. A lot of people are very intimidated by canning, but I'm not. My mother showed me how to can when I was a kid. I have some of her old canning pots and I'll show you guys what they look like later in the video. Canning these oranges were super simple. The hardest part and the most tiring part was peeling these oranges. When you're canning oranges, you want to make sure you get as much of the pith off as possible. The pith is that white stringy part that is found on the outside of the oranges. They'll make the oranges really bitter if you leave a lot of that white part on, so that's why it's so important to get as much as you can off. And you'll notice that I started sitting down in this video because my back was starting to hurt because I was literally standing up peeling these oranges. It seemed like hours on end. I honestly didn't realize how many I had in this bag. If you're interested in learning more about canning, this summer I'm going to do an entire series dedicated to canning. I feel like canning is a lost art and so many people aren't doing it as much as they did when I was growing up as a kid. Growing up in Eastern North Carolina, that was a big part of our summers. My mother would always get fresh corn, butter beans, field peas, and she would put up food like that every single summer. She also would can pickles. She would also make peach preserves and pear preserves. So stay tuned because later in the summer, I'm going to do a whole series on canning and preserving food. So take this as a sneak peek on this Mandarin oranges. Honestly, the process is pretty much the same. I figured out a hack throughout this process of peeling these oranges. I found it a lot easier to get the white stringy part off the outside of the orange if I ran it under cold water. It honestly made the process go by a lot faster if I ran each orange under a little bit of cold water. Like I said earlier, your oranges will turn out really bitter if you don't take this white part off the oranges. So it's very important to remove as much as you can. Baby, I even recruited my husband to come over and help me remove the pith from these oranges. I don't know why he has this neck roll around his daggone neck, but I'm glad he got in to help his wife out. Baby, we are a team up in here and I truly appreciate him helping me clean these oranges. I wish I would have counted exactly how many oranges I actually peeled. The bag that I used was half empty. It was at least 16 to 17 oranges for sure. You could dehydrate the skins and turn it into orange pepper, but I didn't take it that far. Baby, I was tired. Look how beautiful these oranges turned out though. They came out so pretty. I did my very best to remove a lot of the pith off of these oranges so they will not be bitter once I can them. And baby, all you need to can these oranges is just water and sugar. That's it. You just want to use equal parts water to equal parts sugar. I'm using 4 cups of water and then adding in 4 cups of sugar. If you don't want to add that much sugar, you can always cut your sugar. You know how at the grocery store you can buy canned fruit and light syrup? That's all you need to do is cut your sugar. You just want to heat up your sugar water until it turns into a simple syrup. You just need the sugar to completely dissolve. Once it does, you just want to set it aside and allow it to cool. As I mentioned earlier, my mother taught me how to can and I still have her canning pots. I have 2 pots like this. This is what she would use for her pickles. She always would make sweet pickles. And the other 2 she would use for her water baths for her canning. And baby, you can tell these have been heavily used. Look at the bottom of them. This summer, I'm going to give them a good scrub down and they will be good as new. This one definitely needs some TLC, but these pots are over 50 years old. And baby, they belong to my late mother and I'm going to stick beside them. I'm going to use them and remember her always. Cooking and canning was the thing that bonded us in the kitchen. We spent so much time in the kitchen using these pots and canning and preserving food. If you don't plan on doing a lot of canning and you just want to can these Mandarin oranges, you just need a stock pot. I'm using this smaller pot to boil my jars. I only have 3 jars, so I don't need that big of a pot. If you're canning more than that, you're definitely going to need a canning pot. Because I'm doing such a small batch, to boil the jars and lids, I'm just using a regular pot that I use to make spaghetti. This pot is going to be too shallow for the water bath, so I do have a deeper pot, but it's not a canning pot. If you do want to get into canning, you are going to have to get this tool that I'm using, which helps you lower your jars into the boiling water as well as to retrieve them when they're ready to be filled. You want to make sure you boil your jars as well as your lids. You don't need to boil the rings. And this is what the canning process looks like. You want to grab your tool and get one of your jars that are nice and hot. Baby, be careful. You want to make sure all of that water is out of your jar. Make sure you have a good grip on the mouth of your jar. Once you do, just sit it down on the counter, and all you want to do is just fill your jar with the oranges. You want to add as many oranges as you possibly can. Be careful because the top of that jar is hot. You want to pack as many as you can into the jar, but you don't want to break the oranges. Just press them down as you go. You can use tongs if you want to. I'm just using my fingers. Just remember that this jar is hot, so do not grab the jar, friends. I know your instinct is probably to hold the jar while you fill it, but you do not want to do that. Once you have your jar filled to your liking, now all you want to do is add your simple syrup. And you want to fill your jar all the way above the oranges. Very important. The next thing that's very important is that you wipe the top of your jars. So get a damp paper towel and wipe any syrup that may have dripped on top of your jars. You do this to make sure that your lids seal properly. Once you wipe them down, you want to retrieve your hot lid and add them to your jar. Once you have your lid placed on your jar, you then want to add the ring. I always saw my mom take one thumb and press down on her lid and then tighten with the ring. Once again, friend, the jar is hot, so do not grab the jar. You eventually will have to hold the jar, but you want to make sure you get a pot holder first so you can safely hold the jar and tighten the ring. And baby, that's it. That's all. You have canned Mandarin oranges. Look how beautiful these turned out. If you are new to canning, I will link in the description of this video the tools that you're going to need for canning. This jar lifter is definitely one that you need. If you're making jam or jelly or preserves, you're going to need a funnel. You're also going to need a bubble popper. The canning kit that I'm going to link will include also a jar holder, which will allow you to use the tool that will hold the jars as you add the lids and the rings. Baby, I'm old school and I have been doing this for such a long time, so I'm going to touch the jars from time to time. I'm being very careful even though it's very warm, but as a beginner, I definitely suggest you use a jar holder. I got a set of 12 of these jars off of Amazon, and I will link the jars as well. These are quart jars, which are perfect for these oranges and for the pickled red onions. But if you're making jam or jellies, I definitely suggest you get pint jars. You have to do what's best for you. My daughter likes these Mandarin oranges, and making them in these quart jars is perfect for me. Once I seal these jars, I can leave these oranges in my pantry for up to a year. They will not last that long. Once my daughter is back in the mood for Mandarin oranges, I'm just going to add them to a small container and put them in her lunchbox. Once I open the jar, I will add the jar into the refrigerator. I can't put it back into the pantry. That's important to know anytime you're canning at home, that once you have canned your jars, they are good in the pantry for up to a year, but once you open them, you have to store them in a refrigerator. If you're wondering what the reason is for boiling your jars before you fill them, the biggest reason is sterilization. Boiling the jars beforehand helps prevent spoilage and also kills any microorganisms that may be on the jars. You're not only going to boil the jars before you fill them, but you have to do a water bath after you fill them. And I'll show you guys what that looks like later in this video. I was surprised with the amount of oranges I had left in that bag. I was able to get 3 quart-sized jars of beautiful Mandarin oranges that I preserved. Because baby, what I don't eat today, oh, we will be eating it tomorrow. Believe that. I made a little too much simple syrup, but don't worry, I will just use another jar and then add my simple syrup to that jar and store it in my refrigerator. Baby, I can use that simple syrup to make me a bunch of lemon drops over the next couple of months, so I will not waste it. I have a label maker, so I'm just going to label this jar simple syrup and store it in my refrigerator. Simple syrup is just a good thing to have on hand, and it stores really well in the refrigerator. I also will link in the description this label maker. I have one and I love it. All right, so let's talk water baths. You need to put your jars in a pot deep enough where the water will cover cover the jars. That's very important. You need at least 1 inch of water over the top of the jars. So that's why I had to switch pots, because my pot was not deep enough. Once you lower your jars into your hot water, you want to allow the pot to boil, maybe a hard boil, for a good 10 minutes. Okay, after 10 minutes, cut the stove off and allow your jars to sit in the water for another 5 minutes. Get out a clean dish towel and then add your jars to your dish towel. This is how my mama always did it. She would have her jars on a dish towel and then she would use another dish towel to cover them overnight. Baby, I don't know why she put a blanket over these damn jars, but she did it every time. And because I saw her do it, now I do it. By the next morning, your jars should be completely sealed. If you press down on your lids and they spring back, they are not sealed properly, and you would need to do another water bath. My jars came out absolutely beautiful, and I'm going to store them in my pantry for up to 1 year. I hope you've enjoyed this video and have taken notes and have learned the process of canning. I was so proud of how these Mandarin oranges turned out, and they actually came in handy because I used them to decorate a pig picking cake. I'll be posting a video soon to show you guys how to make this pig picking cake. It's the perfect cake for spring and Easter. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the video on how to make this cake. And also so you don't miss the next video in my No Food Waste series. Thank you so much for all your love and support, and I'll see you guys in the next video.